good morning, and welcome to 2023. Happy New Year's, everyone. It's New Year's Day. It's the first day of 2023. Apparently, it looks like I made it. Looks like you have made it as well. So, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. This is the Glassman's World. So, welcome back. I just wanted to share with you guys my journey, my experience, my story with how I personally quit drinking um, 7 years ago this day. So today, January 1st, 2023, marks my 7 year anniversary of sobriety. Well, I don't know if I can say sobriety. I can say my 7 years that I've quit drinking, because a lot of people know that I still partake in utilizing cannabis for medicine. I believe food is thy medicine, and cannabis is one of those medicinal plants that was given to us to be used as food, given to us straight by Creator. Genesis 1:12 says, "And God brought forth all the seed-bearing fruits and herbs for us to use as meat, and He saw that it was good." So, for me, sobriety means that I am no longer drunk, I'm no longer incoherent, that I'm actually functioning in society in a way that I no longer feel compelled to have to go out and drink. It's really interesting that every New Year's, it's one of those celebrations that many of us, we are all born to into this lifestyle of celebrating these holidays. Every holiday that comes around, it seems like we tend to celebrate with the drinking and things like that. So um, it's become embedded, in society, in our culture. It's embedded. Someone's born today, let's celebrate and cheers, have a beer. It's a New Year's Day, cheers, let's celebrate the coming of the new year. It's Christmas Day, let's celebrate, cheers, happy birthday, Jesus, or Merry Christmas to you. It's Halloween, cheers, we're drinking and all dressed up and partying. Um, it's any day, any occasion, it seems like we have learned to celebrate these occasions by drinking. This seems to be not just the American way, but it seems to be around the world. It seems to be that this is what the human society has classified as celebration. And so, in my life, um, the first time I ever tried beer was when I was only 5 years old. And I had an uncle at the time who he was an alcoholic, I believe. He used to drive around with a little mini cooler, little back Coleman cooler, one of those little tiny chests that you could fit a 6 pack in. And he'd always be rolling around with a 6 pack of beer in his. I remember he had a VW Bug, and he would come over and for some reason, back in the 80s, you know, um, children were just allowed to go out and play, and then they'd come home later. And there was a day when I came home later, and apparently, either my mom was in her back room and couldn't hear me at the front door, and so I felt locked out. Although I found out later that there was actually someone home. But so at 5 years old, I was locked out of my house, couldn't get in, so I just sat down on the front porch right there by the front door. My uncle shows up, and I don't know what he was thinking. I don't, it's the 80s back in the day. I'm not going to say exactly which uncle this is or whatever. I'm not going to call him out. But I remember he opened up a beer, and he was drinking a beer while sitting on the porch waiting with me. And I remember he handed it to me, and he gave me my first sip of beer. And I remember we sat there, and after drinking it, it made me burp, and we ended up like having like a little burping contest. And I think I probably had just a few sips of it. It wasn't like I drank the whole thing with him. We didn't share a beer, but it was my first time. And I remember that I didn't really like the flavor, but I was having fun with the burping contest. Um, you know, Fast forward many years later, I had a lot of friends in middle school who started drinking and doing things, and you know, um, by the time we reached high school, a lot of my friends were already drinking, already going out to parties and different things like that. And so as a freshman, your freshman year in high school, you want to try to like fall in with the in crowd and be part of the cool kids, and you want to be able to be invited to like the senior parties, and to be able to go where like varsity football players and all the varsity cheerleaders were going, and where they were invited, that's where the cool spot was. And if you didn't get invited, then you were probably a nobody, and no one wanted you there, you were just a geek or whatever. So um, by my freshman year, I was already making friends with a lot of individuals from all over the school, and, had friends that were seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen, and, I was getting invited to parties. So it was then, my freshman year, that I really started drinking. Um, I can remember a year before, in eighth grade, was the first time I went to a party. Kind of, it was like a end of the year party, and we went to this girl's house, well, her parents' apartment, because she doesn't own a place at eighth grade. And we all went over there, and we were all listening to the old '80s music, like what was his name? You want it, and you got it. Say you want it, baby. Just bust a move. What was his name? Something Young? I forget. Well, you know what I'm talking about. The back in the days of MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, and this other guy, MC Young. MC Young, is that who it was? And so we would go over there. Well, we would go over there. We went there after the last day of school that year, and I remember the kids were passing around this stuff called boons, and it was like a flavored wine kind of thing or whatever, and it was like Kool-Aid. And that was the first time I ever really drank, but I don't remember really getting like to the point of getting drunk or anything like that. It wasn't until my freshman year in high school that I really started to drink, and it was all about trying to fit in for me. It was all about this thing of ego and pride, and being able to show, like, it was like I wanted to show off. Like, oh, you're a senior and you can drink 12 beers? Well, I'm a freshman and I'm going to drink 12 beers with you. And it became this thing of like ego that I had within me. I became good at games like quarters, where you'd flip the quarter and then flip it into a shot and move the shot glass. And I was getting really good at these games. I'd make others drink more than me and things like that. But sometimes it'd get to the point where I was like not drinking because I was making them drink. So I would be like, well, I'll take a shot with you. I'll take a shot with you too. And it's like, I became so good at drinking. I became really good at it. I started to get to a point where, there were times where maybe I wasn't so good at it. At least I thought I was good at it. And that's all a matter of perspective, because there were times when I was so good at it that I could finish a whole bottle of Cuervo all by myself, but then I wouldn't remember anything. And I wasn't so good at that. It became a blackout. It became a blur. It became an embarrassment. I would wake up and find out that I either had an argument or a fight with this individual, or I was trying to hit on this person, this girl or that girl, or making a fool out of myself, or you know woke up at a friend's house and I had peed myself on a chair because I just passed out, just all drunk, and never made it to the bathroom the night before, and drank way too much, and my body was too incapacitated that I couldn't even get up in the middle of the night. So there are lots of things like that became embarrassing. But even still, I continued through high school years. I never went to college, but through the years of my friends going to college, like I would go to their college parties. I didn't enroll into college. I never got that student loan debt for a lifetime. I never wanted that. And so I became a glass blower instead. So, but I'm a glass blower. I'm also a musician, and so after high school, I started to perform, started to play out around town in several different bands. We had Soup, which formed into Chronic Logic, which then formed into Element 37. Eventually, I played with Kev Lee and the Uprising Band, a reggae band, and also played with Law of Attraction, and maybe sat in with a few other artists and bands from time to time here and there. But during those years of performing, and I still, maybe not as much these days, but I still perform out. And, up until 7 years ago, it was, it was a custom to expecting free drinks anytime you'd perform. Anytime I'd perform at a show, you would expect to get two free drink tickets from every bar for every member of the band. So it would be like, okay, there's five of us, we're going to get 10 free drink tickets. And, there were times when we had band members who didn't drink. And so we'd be like, oh, well, hey, I get your drink tickets. And, it's like, okay, well, I get a third one. You get one too? Okay, cool. You're always here. You're always performing, so you get the extra drink ticket. You don't always show up to practices, so you don't get it. But that's how it really was. And every time you'd be on stage, people would come up like, "Hey, have a shot with me," and then you grab a shot from down below, like, "Oh, thanks, man." You get the shot, slam it right in front of the whole crowd, on stage and on the mic and everything, telling everyone cheers, happy New Year's or happy Christmas or whatever day it is, happy Friday, whatever it was. And so um, it became this, we were just became accustomed to drinking all the time, almost every day, almost every night. If you had a show every day, every night, you would be drinking every day, every night. You would get free drink tickets. That was part of your payment. So you wanted to be paid in full. If you didn't accept those drink tickets, you were kind of losing out on, I guess, $10 in drinks, which was kind of how we equated that situation. So, it took many years and many slip ups, many disappointments, many relationships that failed, um, many problems of just feeling other things that were associated with the drinking that came into my life and became issues and problems. you know um, Learning how to hide from your problems by simply going numb, by drinking and removing life, just making life become a full blur. And it was something that just became the norm, and it was accepted because here in the US you can legally drink at 21. By the time you're 18, you're a full grown adult, and most people start drinking at 18 when they're an adult, if not sooner. I started drinking at freshman year, about 15 years of age. And so every year for 25 years, up until 7 years ago, every year I celebrated New Year's Eve with a bang, with a shot, with some beer, with a cake stand, with a beer bong, with double shooters, with Jaeger bombers, with just straight up shots of Patron or Jack or Cuervo or Maker's Mark, until I couldn't drink that anymore and got me sick just to smell it. Southern Comfort. There's so many different drinks that I would drink. I even got into drinking wine. I became a connoisseur of good wines. You get the Gamay Beaujolais or the Shiraz or like Pinot Grigio or some different kinds of things like that. And there were just so many different alcohols that I loved. There was even a time when I was working with my friend, helping her out when she worked at Santa Fe Brewing Company. and we would deliver kegs to all the different places locally here in Albuquerque. At the beginning, when Santa Fe Brewing Company was first first expanding out, my friend was helping to create those accounts here in the different cities in Albuquerque and different places. And then they started to deliver the kegs here into the different bars that started to carry Santa Fe here on tap, and different restaurants and different places. And eventually, I started helping with delivering those kegs because they didn't have their vans back then. They didn't have a way to like rush a keg down to Albuquerque if they needed one. They didn't have storage facilities down here like back in the day. And so we would actually store beer in our apartment. We had cases and cases of beer. So my friend would go out, to different bars, different places, meet the owners, meet the purchasing managers, and talk them into getting Santa Fe Brewing on tap. And she would have these all the different beers, so then she could put together a sample pack of like six different ones. So you'd be like, well, try the porter, or try the ale, or try the pale ale, or try the brown, or try the all the different ones that they had. So then they could be like, well, my customers would probably like this rather than that, or or maybe we tried three different ones or whatever. Get a light, a medium, and a dark, and so we had beers always on hand. It was something that just became so accustomed. Yeah, you'd wake up in the morning and just pop open a beer. You'd have beer for breakfast. This is my life. This is my experience. I know a lot of people didn't do this, but it became a lifestyle for me. I was living in it. It was always around, and I learned that I couldn't blow glass after two beers. So if I kept my beers down to just one or two, I could still get my work done in a day, and then have some more afterward. After I was done with my work, then I could really get my drink on. So many nights of a drunken blur, so many mornings of waking up in such a uh I do not miss waking up hungover. Those hazy mornings where you're so groggy and tired you can't even open your eyes, and you're just like, I'm going back to bed. Just all pissed off because the sun's up. And it was eventually it became old. I became tired of the ritual de lo habitual, the rituals of the daily habits that I started to get accustomed to, that I started to add to my life. And I started to realize, that I was going to the same places, drinking at the same drinking holes, right? Going to the same bars, the same clubs, the same places that we would perform in. Those were the bartenders that gave us free beers at night. So when we'd go see our friends perform, and we'd go and hang out with them, and sometimes we'd get free beers still because we were musicians. That was the other thing. Sometimes, or we'd get a hookup on a discount, or maybe they'd do shots with us, because we were hanging out at their bar, And so eventually, I realized that it was the same places, surrounded by the same people, drinking the same alcohol, having the same shots or the same rounds of beers, maybe trying out something a little new. Oh, what's that new one on tap, But always the same people, same places, the same conversations, over and over again. Never figuring out a solution to these problems that people would always bring out. I don't know if you understand, but when a person gets really drunk, their problems hit them to the point where it just starts like coming out, and they can't help it. They start proclaiming their love for you. I love you, man. You've been my best friend for 10 years. I love you so much, brother. I don't know what I'd do without you. Like, got your hands all around them, all breathing right in their face, all drunk, and they're all drunk too, and you're both like slurring and swerving and falling over, professing your love for one another as best friends. And the next day, you don't even remember, like, what the hell happened, man? And so, and I'm sure, there's probably some people where they like ended up like making out with their best friend or something like that. Like, I, I, I don't go in that direction, so that never happened, thankfully. But I do remember times when being drunk, there would be males who would hit on me, thinking that I wanted to partake with them or something, and that was always weird and uncomfortable. So yeah, a lot of times when people get drunk, they get very free of themselves and real loose and real comfortable doing whatever's in front of people. And so, yeah, my experience, I've had a lot of bad experiences, you know, um, doing things in front of people that you would never want to do in front of anyone, you know, and making yourself a fool in front of individuals, and they see you in a way that you don't even remember yourself ever being. So you never even see yourself in the ways that some people see you when you're drunk. And like I said, towards the end there, I started to get tired of it. Seeing, going to the same places, seeing the same people, having the same conversations, the guys hitting on the same girls, the girls hitting on the same guys, or getting drinks bought by the same guys for them. The game. And you know, it dawned on me at some point that, man, this is like this is a revolver here. This is a dead end, going nowhere situation. And I was so tired of it. And I wanted to quit. And I tried to quit on several occasions. Several years before I actually quit, 7 years ago. It took me several tries, you know. I remember I was even forced to quit for 6 months. I was on pre-trial probation. I was having to follow with what the court told me to do. I had to stop smoking ganja. I had to quit drinking alcohol for 6 months straight. And I remember in those times I was almost getting in trouble for all the ganja in my system. Even though I quit cold turkey, cut it all out, I quit drinking, but still the ganja was showing up in my system. 6 months later, they say every 30 months or 30 days it should be clear, right? Not if you smoke like I do. So after several failed attempts, that one time, 6 months later, finally the courts are like, okay, we're done with your pre-trial or whatever it was that I was forced to do. I went right back to drinking. That's how I celebrated. I celebrated my freedom by going back to drinking. There was another time I remember when I was having issues in a relationship with my daughter's mom, and it got to the point where I was so devastated of losing her. I never wanted to lose her. Every relationship I've ever been in, for me, it was always till the end. It was always for I choose you because you're the right one for me. And apparently things didn't work out for whatever reasons. God puts you in these experiences so you can have these different situations, to these different lessons in life to um, teach you truth and to teach you things. And I was so devastated with losing this individual in my life, losing my child's mother, that I I quit drinking for this individual. And I really wanted to make things work out. I tried my best. I was really giving my all. And for me to step away from drinking was such a hard thing to do. And unless you're an alcoholic, you can't explain this to anyone, how hard it is to just stop drinking. It's not such an easy feat. And to do it for someone else really shows how much you truly feel about that individual and how much you want them to see that you desire to be with them. And yet still in that time, going through that pain of removing yourself from such a ritual de lo habitual for an individual was this daily constant fight, of wanting to drink for myself, but not wanting to drink for someone else. And eventually, you know, after months and months of this, I was probably a good 6 months later, 4 months, 6 months, I quit on my own this time. I wasn't forced by the courts. And then I saw that, my ex started to have feelings for another individual. And I saw that. I saw it going down. I saw the interactions between them before anything was really going on. And I realized what was happening. And I realized she wasn't ever coming back. No matter what I did, even though this was one of the hardest things for me to do for an individual or for myself. But it wasn't for myself. It was for her. And once I realized that that didn't work, I went right to that bar. I ordered me a chocolate stout, a milk stout, left-handed brewery stout. See, I remember. I remember what I used to drink, and I remember what I even ordered at times. And I remember I drank that beer, and it tasted so good. So malty and so warming. It was interesting because it made me feel like something that was missing. And when I drank that, I felt fulfilled because I had quit drinking for someone else. I didn't quit for myself. So then I was getting fulfilled with what I wanted because I wanted to keep drinking. I didn't want to stop drinking. I was just trying to prove to this individual that I would even do this for you. And it wasn't enough. And because I did it for someone else and not for myself, I went right back to it, even harder than before. Eventually, I ended up almost taking my life. I think that was around 2014, so a good 8 years ago or so. I ended up almost taking my life, and I wanted to just end it all. I was done. What was the purpose of all this? It's dead end, revolving door, this dead end life, nothing coming about. No matter how hard I try, things just don't go my way. So I was ready to give up. And it was that day that something compelled me to go listen into the words of Jesus through his teachings of Buddha, through his Buddhist teachings. I don't know if many people know about Jesus's Buddhist teachings, but I went in to listen in on a book that was written of his teachings and went into prayer and meditation in a group prayer, group meditation. And then right after that whole situation, I walked across the street, and that's where I ended up meeting my Krishna guru, my teacher, my spiritual master. And on that day, on that moment, I had no idea what I was stepping into. I had no clue what I was about to be blessed with. But that was the day that, I was still drinking. I had almost taken my life. Something veered me right to Jesus, right to his Buddhist teachings, and then bam, directly right to Krishna. And I remember when I met my guru, as he was speaking to me and all these things that I loved, he was talking about music to me, talking about TV production, music production, doing a TV show, having a stage, doing live shows, having interviews, doing all this stuff that I loved, sound engineering, running, the soundboard, doing lights, doing like all this cool stuff, putting events together, all these different things. As he was telling me all this stuff, they say that God will appear to you in the form that you will accept him. God appears in the form that you will truly believe in God. So for many, people believe in that true form of Jesus, right? And have been stayed there. When I first spoke to my guru, he was morphing in and out. And I remember seeing Jesus, but there were many others that he was morphing in and out of, and I did not know who they were. I just knew that I was speaking with an individual in front of me right here, and his face kept changing and altering. And that was my first day of learning about Krishna. And I was invited to stay for kirtan. And that was what really began my journey to not drinking anymore. When I was invited to kirtan, and I was invited into this loving, warm, embracing arms of spiritual guidance, and I was being taught how to eat properly, not killing animals, and not eating murder, not eating death, not eating that pain, but actually eating something that actually was meant to give us food and strength. All the seed-bearing plants and herbs were given to us to be used as meat, and God saw this was good. Genesis 1:12. I mentioned that earlier. So we're back to this now. Food is thy medicine, and learning how to eat properly. And in these teachings, I started to go daily, and I completely changed from that darkness of wanting to commit suicide that day and wanting to end my life to there's actually a purpose in life here. And this new path that I was blessed with on learning about Krishna consciousness is what really inspired me to get to this point of not drinking anymore. And so learning about Krishna, the first book that I ever read was this here, The Perfection of Yoga, by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. And so this was written by our guru, our spiritual master here, who's descended down from many different gurus, all the way from Krishna, all the way down. And this book here, it taught me so much of what I needed to know in life. And it was like a guide for life, and being able to teach me on the things that I needed for my spiritual soul and my spiritual awakening, compared to the things that I felt I needed for my material body and vessel, and those things that come within the material form that we need, like getting drunk. Does the spirit need to get drunk? No. But sometimes the body does, because the body is in so much pain. This book taught me about the 4 stages of suffering, and that we all go through the 4 stages of suffering, which includes birth, disease, old age, and death. And when these 4 stages of suffering start to accumulate so much in your life to the point where they take over, that's when people start to have issues with relationships. They start to have issues with creating relationships with drugs and alcohol, finding those escapes to be able to remove themselves from one of these 4 stages of suffering. And we all go through it, but we aren't all taught that we have to endure these 4 stages of suffering as a way of spiritual awakening, to be able to remind us of what we really need to truly focus in on. And so for many years, I was completely sidetracked by this material world here and this whole acceptance of thinking that because it's legal to drink at the age of 21, that it's okay. You know, I grew up in a world where we had Nancy Reagan pushing the whole just say no campaign. Just say no. Back in the 80s, right? And I grew up in this way of telling everyone, you know, like, drugs are bad, kids, okay? Drugs are bad, okay? And, but then, you know, I started drinking at 15. And there was a time when I remember I was telling my friends, what are you guys doing? You're over there smoking that crap, that devil's weed, and it's gonna kill you. And I'm over here slamming, I think it was Southern Comfort. I was slamming a fifth of Southern Comfort like it was nobody's business. Go, 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 go. It had that sweet, warm sensation like a brandy, right? Something about that SoCo, that Southern Comfort. I'm over here slamming a fifth down, but I'm telling my friends, you guys shouldn't smoke that. You guys are going to kill yourself smoking that. So what happened was Nancy Reagan, she duped so many of us. She taught us wrong. She taught us that that could kill us. Whereas nowadays we're learning it's medicine. Doctors are prescribing it. States are legalizing it. New Mexico, right here where I live, has recreationalized it. Now it's time to normalize it. But back then, we were taught that it was gonna be fatal. That if you partook in smoking the herb, the weed, the grass, that you would die. That just say no, kids, just say no. But then eventually they were like, oh, I guess it's not really going to kill you, but it's a gateway drug. So anyone who smokes that, well, that's going to just lead you to smoking other things, more dangerous drugs. So they utilized that, and they didn't teach us properly the truth about it. And it wasn't until after high school that I learned the truth on how the Industrial Revolution demonized God's gift to us, and that this plant could be used to manufacture and create all the different products in the world besides metal and glass. Everything else in the world could be manufactured by utilizing hemp or cannabis. And the Industrial Revolution demonized it. And so that was my first taste on learning about conspiracy theories and learning about how the government isn't one to be trusted because they have their priorities always above the people's priorities. And our safety is not their concern. And if they want to demonize something that is extremely safe and beneficial and medicinal for us so they can gain profits, then we cannot trust them. You know, and it took me a long time to realize that they've been utilizing the spirits of alcohol to obtain the spirits of the people. This is a spiritual warfare. And they basically allowed us to be duped into enjoying drinking for ourselves. They figured out how to make our own imprisonment enjoyable through the addition of entertainment with it, you know. You know, I can't book a show unless I'm out there promoting and endorsing an alcoholic establishment, you know? Where am I going to go play? At a coffee house? No one's going to come to see me at a coffee house. Everyone's going there for coffee. Everyone's going there because that's their favorite Saturday breakfast spot. You know, the place they like to go after church on Sundays. You know, the place they like to go meet up for lunch during the weekdays with their friends. You know, it's not to go see a musician perform. If they're going to go see you perform, they're going to go out, have a night on the town, go see someone in the evening where they can go and partake and enjoy drinking, and that's where they want to go and see you. While they're enjoying this, they can also be imbibing and listening to the sounds. And when you mix those two together, you can create some magic, spells, things like that. And it's really interesting to have finally have my eyes opened up to that, to understanding that for as long as I can remember, they've been coming after me with their alcohol since I was a young child, you know? And that my own uncle was even tricked, was even duped into giving a child alcohol because even he thought that, oh, it's legal, it's safe. One day you'll drink too. We all drink. It's safe. No one pays attention to cirrhosis of the liver. Like, no one cares about that until you're actually, like, having a plan to go to a funeral. No one cares about any of that, And then what do? They go out and celebrate their friend's life by drinking, It's interesting, Every celebration has to do with drinking. And so it's been 7 years now for me that I quit drinking. But it took some time, after learning about Krishna consciousness, I finally understood what devotional service meant and how to be in service to others instead of focusing on just serving myself, always making sure I'm always entertained and always having fun. It's always about me and my fun. This is my life. And it's like, okay, yeah, you can be like that. You can selfishly live in that way, or you can give the best gift ever, which is giving yourself. And who is the best person to give a gift to? Like your child, your mother, your wife, your girlfriend, your grandparents. Or what if you're giving back to the one who created all those that you love? What if you're always in devotional service to Creator itself? What if you're just in devotional service to creation, to Creator, to be able to help perpetuate this in the best way, in the mode of nature, of getting back to nature, instead of putting these stumbling blocks in front of nature? Are we supposed to be drunk throughout life? What kind of spiritual growth does that allow us to have? I didn't get started up until just a few years ago. Imagine if my parents were taught this in order to teach me this long ago. I would have never had to stumble for many years. Imagine if they understood the importance of cannabis, so I was never duped into thinking of, oh, just say no, just say no. But alcohol is illegal, so I'll say yes to that when I can, right? Like, it would have been really nice if we were all taught these things earlier on. And so I'm hoping that by sharing my story, my journey here on how I was able to finally get to a point of what I call my sobriety. I know when I partake here, a lot of you may think, he's not sober, he still smokes. A lot of people don't realize that this is medicinal. This helps spiritually. This helps to keep me focused so that way I don't go astray. That way I can continue to be with living with less stress, living with less anxiety, and also knowing that my body, your body, every body has an endocannabinoid system, and there's truly one way to feed the endocannabinoid system and to help it develop and to help it strengthen. Whereas alcohol only diminishes your health, it helps to suppress your immune system. When you're drinking and you get sick, you do not get healthier quicker. I know a lot of people will say, oh, but having a hot toddy might work. It's like, there is such thing as whiskey medicine. Yes, yes, there is. Everything can be medicine and everything can be poison. It's all a matter of perspective. It's all a matter of amounts. And yes, alcohol can be medicine. How many times have I taken tinctures in the last 7 years to help with ailments, to help with bodily pains and sickness and illness? Not too many, because I actually don't get sick very often. But yes, I've taken tinctures. Um, Someone reminded me that fermented foods can also contain alcohol, including cheese. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. Well, I know I've had imitation vanilla extract in my cookies and my and my cakes, you know. But other than that, I have not had a sip ever since I quit drinking 7 years ago. So that gets me to the point of how I actually quit drinking. So, a few years leading up to that and getting into Krishna consciousness and still drinking, I would still go out, Taco Tuesdays, I'd go down the way and I'd have some tacos. I was still eating meat, even though I was supposed to be learning about being Krishna conscious and eating vegetarian and not eating meat, not eating death, not participating in that. And so, but then, there's other things that I've learned too. The cycle of birth and death. Things must die, and other things must consume other things. So things must die, and other things must consume them. We take in foods, even if it's plants that are, once you pull them, they're dead. Yeah, they might be able to regrow and regenerate fruit for years and years to come, but after you pick that off, that's no longer living on the plant. You've separated it from its living form, and you consume it, and you turn that into life again. And so it's interesting, and I get it. Some people do believe that they need to eat meat in order to get the perfect amount of protein because they were never taught that dals and other different foods, Ayurvedic foods, have the same amount and even more protein content per volume or per weight, including like hemp seed and stuff like that. So, um, you know, not learning about certain things in life really helps us or hurts us. It really hinders us. And so, I really wish that I would have been on a spiritual path sooner in life, but at the same time, I understand that every seed will grow at its own rate and every plant will blossom and fruit in its own time. And so, I had to take the almost 40 years of my life to finally get to this point of learning about spirituality and learning about Krishna consciousness and understanding the Bible finally because of Krishna consciousness and understanding what Jesus truly stood for and why he was here and how he came to be and his manifestation as a human form here, but also being a form of God, being simultaneous both. I understand that now because of Krishna consciousness, that I can understand how that works. I understand it all. I understand the missing books and why they removed them, to remove all the confusion, or else people would be questioning everything still. And so It took me a long time to finally understand that I couldn't be in devotional service if I was still serving this negative aspect in my life. If I was literally still serving myself a shot or a beer, or literally serving my friends a literal glass of alcohol, if I was literally doing these things, if I was literally serving alcohol, I couldn't be in devotional service to God. And that's what I finally understood and I realized. And so 7 years ago, I was still trying to pursue this lifestyle of drinking. I wanted to continue drinking. And I was hoping to find a party for New Year's Eve 7 years ago. But this was already a year or two in my journey with Krishna consciousness. And within that year or two, I started losing friends. They started to fall off. They didn't understand me anymore because I was speaking about God, but in a way that was unfamiliar to them, because all they ever heard of was through Jesus. And you can only go through God through Jesus, only through that guru, not through any other spiritual masters or teachers, but only through that one. And that's the one that everyone has to follow, or else. Or else. And so when I started to talk to other individuals about this, it really confused them because they didn't understand it. They had no experience with this. So when you come into something that's unknown, it creates that fear, the fear of the unknown. So I started losing individuals in my life. I started losing people because I started to talk about this new truth that I was learning. I was finally grasping the concept of what it all, how it all came together. I finally was able to understand the Bible because of Krishna consciousness. It all came together. The puzzle all fit. And so understanding that I couldn't be of devotional service while still serving this alcoholic lifestyle, I had to give it up. But I couldn't personally. There was something in me still that was like being pulled. Like, come on, let's go get another drink. Come on, let's go find that party on New Year's 7 years ago. So I just saw in my Facebook memories 7 years ago, it was asking for, hey, where are all the Arties at? Apparently I didn't put the P. So where are all the Arties at? I'm ready to go out and celebrate this New Year's. Never got an invite to any party or Artie. I never got invited to go out and celebrate with anyone. Eventually, my best friend came by. You know, this is someone who, for some years, we weren't hanging out for a while, and then we started hanging out again and things. And but at this time, we were friends. We were hanging out, and he came by and was like, hey, I was just hanging out with our friend, and we were just smoking over there and having some beers and stuff. And I was probably going to go back over there for New Year's, you know, to celebrate. There's not many people over there, just a few of us are just celebrating. You want to come by? I was like, yeah. Like, I was looking for somewhere to go, but I didn't have anywhere to go. I'm over there busy working on the computers. I'm typing away, building someone's website, doing something over there for my guru at the time. And my friend decided to go out for a smoke, go have a cigarette. So he's like, I'll be back. I'm going to go sit in the car and have a smoke. I was like, all right, cool. I'm over just busy working, was waiting for my friend to come back. I figured when he came back in that I would just finish up what I was doing, save it, and then close it up, and we'd go. He never came back in. You know, it was like 30 minutes go by. I'm like, where'd he go? What happened to him, you know? I go step outside. His vehicle's gone. Like, what the heck? He totally just, he dissed me. He left without me. He took off without me. He left me here stranded. Went to the party without me. Like, what the F, man? Like, that's messed up. So I was all hurt. I was all upset. Like, I can't believe he just, like, left me like that. Just left me hanging. Whatever. So I just went back in. I just went back to work. Like, I guess no parties for me. This is weird. And I realized this is the first time in 25 years that I'm not going to drink on New Year's Eve. It's like, wow, that's interesting. Like, well, I've been kind of thinking about, I need to stop drinking for Krishna and things like that. Then the next day, I wake up, didn't go out drinking. The first time, 25 years, I woke up sober, woke up without a hangover on New Year's Day. First time in 25 years since I was 15 years old. And the building that we were in, we were actually piggybacking. We were renting out the back space as the previous owner. He was about to move out, but he still was like had control of the front area, and he was still hosting meetings and stuff like that. He had a computer repair place, but then he had a community center in the front, so people could host different meetings, whatever they'd like to host. He would just rent out the space. Excuse me. So that day, this woman came in. She's an older woman, and she started to grab the chairs, the folding chairs, the metal chairs out on the side, and she put them out, and she started setting them up. And so, being who I am, I was like, oh, would you like some help? Let me give you a hand here. Like, you don't need to be doing all this. So, I started grabbing 4 chairs at a time and trying to set them up faster than she could, and to get them all set up and figure out how she wanted them to be set up, all displayed like kind of in a round kind of set like that, or a half circle like a horseshoe, and with a couple chairs in the front. I was like, all right, cool. I was like, well, there you go. She's all, thank you for helping out. I was like, so what is this meeting that we're setting up here for? And she tells me, oh, it's a AA meeting. Okay. Been thinking about quitting drinking. Last night, thought I was going to a party. It didn't happen. First time in 25 years I wake up sober. And now an AA meeting has come to my door. I didn't go to an AA meeting. That AA meeting came to me the next day. At that time, I was already seeing signs from God. I was already seeing those signs, and I realized I couldn't be doing this anymore. And it felt right, and I just asked that woman right then and there, do you mind if I sit in with you? Last night was the first time in 25 years I didn't drink. She said, of course, please join us. You're always welcome to. And so that was my very first meeting that I ever sat in, and it was actually like a queer, gay, lesbian AA meeting. It was before the whole LGBTQ, all the alphabets and everything. It was, it was just, it was like bi, gay, lesbian, AA. It was one of the only ones that we had in the city that was like that for those individuals. And they were accepting of me to be there. And everyone was just talking about their struggles with drinking. And that was my first day, and they gave me my very first chip, a 24-hour chip. They also told me that there were other meetings that they were going to be going to that day, and they're like, if you'd like, you can come with us. So then they invited me to another place around the corner called the Desert Club, and there were a couple other places around that I had heard about, at the United Methodist Church on University, and a couple other places. And eventually I started going to these meetings on my own, and I started listening to these stories. But what it truly was for me was Krishna, and understanding that I couldn't be in devotional service to God, to Creator, to Krishna, or even to others, or even to myself. I couldn't be in service to myself if I was just continuously being a disservice to myself and to others. By being in a state of drunkenness, to a point where I'm not even helpful, I can't even be of service to anyone, just, I realized at that point in my life that I wasn't doing anyone, including myself, any good by staying drunk, being a drunk, and continuously drinking, and it continues that lifestyle. So that day, I vowed to myself, I vowed to Krishna. I thanked Krishna for bringing that meeting to me. I thanked Krishna for allowing me to not find a party the night before. I thanked Krishna for allowing me to understand what I needed to really be focused on in that time. You know, I was also going through at that point I didn't realize it, but it became a custody battle for my child. And I also knew at that time that if I was going to have to go to court, I was going to have to go to court sober, because that was one thing that they were going to hold over me and try to prove that I wasn't a good father because I was a drunk father. And that was the one thing that they were going to try to hold over me. So I took that away from them. I took that ammunition from them. And I gave it all to Krishna. I gave it all to God. And I give thanks for that meeting coming to me, for those individuals coming to me, for them inviting me to other meetings, to the Desert Club, where I found other friends and individuals I know in the community there as well, and met others and got to share my stories and really got to listen to their stories. And I understood that a lot of them were just stuck there, and that AA wasn't helping a lot of them. And I realized that AA for me was just to be able to share my stories on how my spiritual path, my willingness and my desire to give myself to God, to Krishna, is what led me to sobriety. It's what brought the AA meeting right to my footsteps. It's what allowed me to finally step away from drinking and step away from an alcoholic lifestyle. And so without God, without Creator, you know, none of this would have happened. But also I understand that God and Creator put me through all of that as well. That we're all given these trials and tribulations in life so we can learn these lessons, and we can turn all lessons into blessings. I used to say that many years ago, long ago. To turn all your lessons into blessings. And how do you do that? Well, you find the silver lining in all things. In all bad and negative situations, there's always a silver lining. When there's a bottom, there's always a top. When there's bad, there's always good. When there's wrong, there's always right. And when there's bad things that happen, there's always that silver lining that you must find in order to understand the lesson, the trial and the tribulation that's being presented to you, so you can understand which direction and where to put your focus. So I'm no longer focused on drinking anymore. I know I save myself at least $20 a day. When I used to drink, I drank at least $20 in beer a day. $4 beer with a $1 tip, at least 4 of those to myself. And if I had friends that joined me and I supported their drinking habit, then I would buy them beers, and that $20 would easily become 40, sometimes 60, maybe even 100. And nowadays I realize that I don't throw away that money anymore. Nowadays I can utilize it to invest in things, making sure that we have the things that we really, really need, making sure that we're focusing on the medicine that we need. I wasn't ever able to have the medicine that I always needed constantly. It was like I felt the alcohol was numbing me enough that I didn't need the actual other medicine. And so it took that journey of of losing friends, becoming uninvited to parties, becoming unpopular with the community, and just, you know, losing that whole connection that I once had here, but trading it in for a much stronger, much deeper spiritual connection with God. I wouldn't trade that for anything. I wouldn't give that up for anything now. I'm so grateful to have been blessed with this new path. And I'm going to continue to share this story with others. You know, maybe I need to go back to the AA meeting so I could actually maybe host a meeting, maybe share these stories and try to help others become successful with their sobriety, with their non-alcoholic path in life as well. So I'll leave you with that. But I want to thank you all so much for tuning in, for joining me once again here at the Glassman's World. This is something deep and something that it's not always easy to share, but over time I've become more comfortable with it. I've become more comfortable with opening up to the dark sides of things that I've gone through, and just really sharing that with you. So even through the darkness, we can see the light. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Dan the Glass Man. I hope you guys have a wonderful new year. Let's pray that 2023 is a much better year for us all. If health is diminishing, lives are being lost, always remember that that's not the end. Always know that we are all eternal spirit souls, and we are all on a spiritual path right now, and we're all going through a spiritual warfare together. Some of us haven't decided on which side they want to be on, so their sides have been chosen for them. So be sure to choose the path of the light and do not remain in that darkness, especially if it's your choice to remain there. Wouldn't you rather choose light? Wouldn't you rather choose God? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Namaste. I see you, brothers and sisters. Let your light shine.